The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, tucked inside a cream-colored envelope so thick and heavy it felt like a proclamation. It was addressed not to Sarah Washington, the head librarian of the Oak Ridge Public Library, but to her 17-year-old daughter, Maya. Sarah turned it over in her hands, her brow furrowed. The return address was simply a stylized chef, embossed in gold wax. No name, no street. Inside, the cardstock was even heavier, the letters engraved in a sharp, black font. It was an invitation, or rather, a summons, for Maya Washington to participate as a solo contestant in the Finch Foundation Invitational, an elite academic quiz bowl. The event was to be held in 3 weeks at the private, almost mythical, Athenaeum Club downtown. The prize, a full scholarship to any university of her choice, personally funded by the Alastair Finch Foundation. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Alastair Finch was a ghost, a local legend. A tech billionaire who had retreated from public life decades ago, he was now known only through the actions of his foundation, which moved through the city like a silent, powerful current, funding hospitals and museums with an air of detached noblesse oblige. Why on earth would a man like that be inviting her Maya, a girl whose entire world was the quiet, dusty aisles of the library, to a high-stakes academic duel? He can't be serious, Sarah whispered, looking over at her daughter. Maya was sitting at their small kitchen table, a stack of books beside her. Her eyes were distant, a familiar look. Sarah knew she wasn't just staring into space, she was reading the pages of a book she'd finished hours ago, her mind flipping through them as if they were still in her hands. "What is it, Mom?" Maya asked, her focus returning to the small kitchen. Sarah slid the invitation across the table. Maya read it, her expression unreadable. She wasn't excited or intimidated. She was simply processing. "Alastair Finch," she said, her voice soft. "He wrote the seminal paper on quantum computing architecture in 1998. Then he sold his company for $6 billion and disappeared." "We're not going," Sarah said, the decision solidifying in her voice. "This is unseemly. He can't just summon you like this." Maya looked up from the card, and for the first time, Sarah saw a flicker of something else in her daughter's eyes. Not ambition, but curiosity. "Why not?" she asked. "It's a quiz bowl. I like quizzes." And that was how, against her better judgment, Sarah found herself walking through the colossal bronze doors of the Athenaeum Club 3 weeks later. The air inside was cool and smelled of old leather, lemon polish, and money. Men in dark suits spoke in hushed tones beneath oil paintings of other, older men in dark suits. There was no diversity, no color, just a sea of stoic, privileged faces. Sarah pulled her cardigan tighter, feeling like a misplaced character in a novel she would have advised her patrons to avoid. They were already there, a quartet of boys who looked like they'd been genetically engineered in a lab for academic dominance. They wore matching navy blazers with a crest Sarah didn't recognize, their postures ramrod straight, their faces masks of cool confidence. They were the products of elite prep schools, of tutors and international summer programs. They were everything Maya was not. Then she saw him. Standing off to the side, observing the room with the detached air of a biologist studying a new species, was Alastair Finch. He was older than Sarah had imagined, gaunt and sharp-featured, with pale, penetrating eyes. He wasn't looking at his hand-picked team. He was looking at Maya. Maya, for her part, seemed oblivious. She was taking in the room, her eyes scanning the painted ceiling, the pattern on the Persian rug, the titles of the leather-bound books lining the walls. She wasn't intimidated, she was cataloging. A man with a clipboard approached them. "Ms. Washington? Mr. Finch would like a word." They were led to a small, private alcove. Alastair Finch didn't smile. He simply nodded. "Sarah Washington. Head librarian at Oak Ridge. 24 years of service. Commendation from the mayor in 2019 for the summer reading program." His gaze shifted to Maya. Maya Washington. Perfect scores on every standardized test. No extracurriculars, save for the library. You read, on average, 12 books a week. Your memory is said to be unusual. The clinical recitation of their lives sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "Why are we here, Mr. Finch?" she asked, her voice firmer than she felt. "I believe in merit, Ms. Washington," Finch said, his eyes fixed on Maya. "But I also believe that talent is wasted without pressure. I have spent a fortune assembling what should be the finest young academic team in the country." He gestured vaguely toward the boys in blazers. "They have every advantage. The best schools, the best resources. You, Maya, have had only one, a public library. This is an experiment. I want to see which investment yields a better return." Sarah's blood ran cold. It was exactly as she'd feared. They were props in his arrogant philosophical game. "My daughter is not an experiment." Maya simply nodded. "Perfectly." The match began. The moderator, a stern-faced academic, launched into the first toss-up. In physics, this law, which can be derived from the conservation of energy, states that for an inviscid flow, an increase in the speed of the fluid occurs simultaneously with a decrease in pressure or a decrease in the fluid's potential N. Buzz. The sound was jarring in the silent room. Maya's light was on. The Finch scholars looked stunned. She had buzzed in before the moderator had even finished the first clause. Maya Washington, the moderator acknowledged. Bernoulli's principal, Maya said, her voice calm and even. Correct. 15 points. A murmur went through the small, invited audience. The four boys on the opposing team exchanged uneasy glances. Their captain, a sharp-jawed boy named Preston, leaned into his microphone. The next question began. This Shakespearean tragedy, believed to have been written between 1599 and 1601, revolves around the titular character's hesitation to avenge his father's murder at the hands of his uncle, Claw. Buzz. It was Preston this time. Hamlet. Correct. 10 points. And so it went. A duel of reflexes. Preston and his team were fast, incredibly knowledgeable. They answered questions on Renaissance art, German philosophy, and organic chemistry. They were a well-oiled machine. But Maya was something else entirely. This composer's Symphony No. 9, also known as the Choral Symphony, was the first major example of a composer using voices in a SYMPH. Buzz. Beethoven, Maya said. Correct. 15 points. The Battle of Agincourt, a major English victory in the Hundred Years' War, took place in the year. Buzz. 1415, Maya said. Correct. 15 points. She wasn't just answering the questions, she was anticipating them. The pyramidal style of NAQT questions, where clues become progressively easier, was built for her mind. She didn't need the whole question. The first clause, the first unique identifier, was enough. A single phrase would unlock a file in her head, and the answer would appear, crisp and clear as the day she'd first read it. She remembered the exact page in her European history textbook describing the battle, complete with a map of the battlefield and a footnote about the longbows. The score was 150-85 in Maya's favor. Alistair Finch watched, motionless, his face a stony mask. The Finch scholars were beginning to unravel. Their cool confidence was cracking, replaced by frustration. They started buzzing in too early, making mistakes. This novel by Gabriel Garcia Marquez tells the multi-generational story of the Buendia fam. Buzz. A boy named Julian on the Finch team blurted out, love in the time of cholera. Incorrect, the moderator said flatly. 5-point deduction. Maya, you may answer. Maya didn't even wait. 100 Years of Solitude. Correct. 10 points. Sarah watched, her hands clenched in her lap. She saw the boys whispering, casting resentful glances at Maya. They weren't just losing, they were being humiliated. This wasn't a competition of knowledge anymore. It had become a battle of class, of privilege against raw, undeniable talent. They had been given everything, and they were being dismantled by a girl who had nothing but a library card. Preston, the captain, was furious. His face was flushed. He was used to winning. He was used to being the smartest person in the room. He saw this as an affront, not just to his intellect, but to his station. The moderator began a history question. The primary author of the Declaration of Independence, he later served as the third President of the United States and founded the University of. Buzz. It was Preston. He practically shouted into the microphone. Thomas Jefferson. Correct. 10 points. He had beaten her on the buzzer. A small victory, but it seemed to restore his resolve. His team got the corresponding bonus question right, adding another 30 points. The score was tightening. 220-195. The questions grew more obscure. They moved from standard high school curriculum to collegiate-level topics. It was a deliberate escalation, designed to find the limits of the contestants' knowledge. This protein, crucial for the process of apoptosis, is released from the mitochondria in response to intracellular stress signals. It binds with a PAF1 to form the apoptoso. Buzz. Maya's light was on. The room was utterly silent. Even the moderator seemed surprised. This was graduate-level cell biology. Cytochrome C, Maya said. Correct. 15 points. Sarah could have sworn she saw the corner of Alistair Finch's mouth twitch, the barest hint of a smile. Preston slammed his hand, ever so slightly, on his podium. He hadn't even recognized the topic. The final stretch of the game was a blur. Maya was in a state of pure flow. The world outside the question ceased to exist. There was only the moderator's voice, the trigger phrases, and the cascade of information in her mind. She saw the chemical structure of cytochrome C as it appeared in a biochemistry journal she'd flipped through a year ago. She saw the stanzas of a T.S. Eliot poem, the battle formations of the Peloponnesian War, the intricate family tree of the Russian Tsars. The score was 485 to 410. Maya needed one more toss-up. The next question would decide the match. The moderator took a breath, looking directly at the contestants. For the win, he said, his voice low. This question is from theoretical mathematics. The Riemann hypothesis, a conjecture proposed by Bernhard Riemann in 1859, posits that all non-trivial zeros of the Riemann zeta function have a real part equal to. Silence. This was different. This wasn't a question of stored knowledge. It was a famous unsolved problem. There was no textbook with the answer. The Finch scholars were completely still, their faces blank. Preston looked defeated. The moderator continued, the question becoming a narrative. Equal to 1/2. While the hypothesis remains unproven, a key related concept, which describes the asymptotic distribution of prime numbers, is known as the. Maya's eyes were closed. Her mother knew this look. She wasn't scanning a page. She was connecting threads. She was pulling from a dozen different sources at once. A biography of Riemann she'd read. An article in a popular science magazine about prime numbers. A footnote in a calculus textbook about asymptotic functions. The information wasn't on a single page, it was scattered across the entire library of her memory. She saw the shape of the zeta function graph from one book, the definition of a prime from another, the concept of a theorem from a third. She was weaving them together in real time. The moderator finished. Is known as the prime number theorem. For 15 points, name the two mathematicians who independently proved this theorem in 1896, using ideas laid out by Riemann. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. This was impossible. No high school student, no matter how brilliant, would know this. It was a deliberately cruel question, designed to end the game in a stalemate, perhaps to prove Finch's ultimate point that there were limits to what one could learn without formal, high-level guidance. Preston shook his head, a smirk of bitter resignation on his face. It was over. No one could answer this. 5 seconds passed. 10. The moderator was about to declare the question dead. Buzz. The light on Maya's podium glowed, a soft, defiant pulse in the cavernous room. Every head turned. Alistair Finch leaned forward in his chair, his mask of indifference finally shattering, replaced by raw, unadulterated shock. Maya Washington, the moderator said, his voice laced with disbelief. Maya opened her eyes. She spoke the names clearly and calmly, as if reciting a grocery list. Jacques Hadamard and Charles-Jean de la Vallée-Poussin. For a moment there was only stunned silence. Then, the moderator's voice strained. That is correct. The match goes to Maya Washington. 500 to 410. The room remained silent for another beat, and then, a single person began to clap. It was Alistair Finch. He rose to his feet, his applause echoing, slow and deliberate. Then, others joined in, a hesitant but growing wave of sound. Sarah was crying, silent tears of pride and relief streaming down her face. The Finch scholars looked on, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief. Their carefully constructed world, built on privilege and prestige, had been completely and utterly conquered by a quiet girl from the public library. Later, after the stunned audience had dispersed, Finch approached them again. The cold, clinical demeanor was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like reverence. I have spent my life searching for a certain kind of mind, he said, his voice softer now. A mind that doesn't just collect information, but connects it. I built my fortune on it. I thought I could manufacture it. He glanced at the now empty stage where his team had stood. I was wrong. He looked at Maya. Your memory is a gift, yes. But what you did with that last question, that was not memory. That was synthesis. That was true intelligence. He handed Sarah a different envelope. This one was simpler, bearing the official logo of the foundation. The scholarship is yours, of course. But I am offering something more. A mentorship. Access to any resource, any laboratory, any mind you wish to learn from. I will not try to mold you. I will simply open the doors. The world is full of questions, Maya. I think you might be one of the people capable of finding some of the answers. Maya looked at the envelope, then at her mother, and finally at the strange, intense billionaire before her. For the first time that day, she smiled. A small, genuine smile that lit up her entire face. I'd like that, she said. I have a lot of questions. As they walked out of the Athenaeum Club, leaving the world of old money and leather-bound books behind, Sarah put her arm around her daughter. The city lights felt brighter, the future vast and full of possibility. Maya's gift had not been a party trick or a curse. It was a key, and she had just unlocked the first of many doors. Her story was just beginning, a testament to the unshakable power of a brilliant mind nurtured not by wealth, but by love and the quiet, endless generosity of a public library. If you were inspired by Maya's incredible journey, please hit that like button to show your support. And for more true stories about amazing people who defy the odds, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.